All right, Parshas Shemini, we had a break for a couple of weeks. Livyoson ze yotsarto l'sachakbei. Yeah, we learned this מאמר already. We'll try seeing it from a different angle today. Abishinke. Yeah, es steht im Pasuk, Livyoson ze yotsarto l'sachakbei. So, I'll be magdim that there's a Gemara in Avodah Zarah. The Gemara speaks about what the Eibishter does. It's strange what he's busy with. What's his schedule? What he does earlier, what he does in the first 3 hours of the day and the next 3 hours. The Seder HaYom, what the Eibishter does. So the Gemara says that there are 3 hours in the day that the Eibishter sits and he's mesachik with the Livyoson. Yoshuv mesachik with the Livyoson. So, and then he brings the Pasuk, as he steht im Pasuk, Livyoson ze yotsarto l'sachak bei. So, I just want to point out one Indian about this word, and then we'll get to it later. L'sachek means to be mesameach someone else. Right? In other words, what happens during that time? The Eibishter is with the Livyoson. How does it work? Who's making whom happy?
Hashem's making this happy. That's almost if it's a burden on Hashem.
The Eibishter is making the Livyoson happy.
Yeah.
He created the Livyoson in order to make it happy.
No.
In other words, the Eibishter is being entertained by the Livyoson. So really, it shouldn't say l'sachek boy. Understand? L'sachek sounds like he's making it happy, but really, it's being mesameach him.
Okay.
But it should have said Kadosh Baruch Hu seichik with the Livyoson.
Okay.
But he didn't. So the Marsha asks the Shaila, and he says that it doesn't. The Pasuk doesn't want to say that the Eibishter is seichik. The Gemara. Marsha is talking about the Gemara. He says that he doesn't want to say the Pasuk's lashon is lesachik, but the Gemara's lashon is mitzachik. Right. So the Marsha says that he didn't want to say by the Eibishter the lashon schaik, because schaik means like giddiness, frivolity. That it's like a lashon for kalos roish.
Haughtiness.
Yeah, and the haughtiness is gaiva. It's like light-hearted in the sense, in other words, having fun that's without any
Boundary.
Yeah, without boundaries. Like you know what I mean? Inappropriate a little bit. Like litzonim, like jokesters. Like pranksters. It's not bekovedik, it's not respectful to say about the Eibishter seichik.
Right.
So that's why he uses the lashon mitzachik, because he doesn't. But really, the Eibishter is taking pleasure, and he uses the lashon. The Torah is called shashuyim. Right? We have. I'm explaining this a minute. We have a Russian word, tzatzke. Right? Metzatzketzach. Right? Right? How do you say it in English? Right, something that I adore. Something that I adore. It just gives me pleasure. Right. So the inyan of Torah is shashuyim etzatzketzech. It's like when someone is when you speak to somebody about a topic that they're very familiar with. And they're just so comfortable, they're just enjoying the conversation because every aspect of it is clear to them, right? So, and they love it, it's their passion, right? So by shashuyim atzmiyim, but it's the Eibishter's pet peeve, it's his personal. So that's really what is trying to say Livyoson, that the Livyoson is the Eibishter's pet. And so what's the pet? I have a pet so that I can make my pet happy. Right? My pet makes me happy. This is not a discussion about selfishness. You know what I mean? It's not like, well, what do you mean? Yeah, you should be making your pet dog happy. That's not the point. When you have fish swimming around in the fish tank that look interesting, you're making them happy. You know, the little kids stand and they point with the fingers and it's so much fun, right? It's being misameach you, it's giving you joy. So Livyoson ze yotsarto, the Eibusha created the Livyoson, l'sachak bay. Also famously, the Gemara says that the Eibusha created a couple, a Livyoson, right, a male and female, and then he said that if they would have propagated, then the world wouldn't be able to stand. So the Eibusha killed the female and is holding it for loss at love, and the Livyoson is still alive somewhere. So, in other words, this idea of Livyoson, the way we're talking, you know, I can't. This is not a scientific discussion, but the way it's presented is that it's a physical fish, right? It's in other words, it's in the world, and in a certain way, it transcends the world, because it's like not bound by time. What do you mean? It's canned and it's preserved, and you know what I mean? Like the one animal is good, lost at love. You know what I mean? There's a certain aspect. On one hand, it's, oh yeah, the Eibusha created. The Satan Pasuk, Taninim, Agdoy, you know. Oh, very nice. And what? And it lost at love. So what is that? It's like the delight of the first day of creation, right? So you could look from one end of the world to the other. So it's like, it's a hybrid. It's a light, it's a physical light, but it has spiritual properties. You know what I mean? That expression, the Rapinya's expression of in Welt and Eiswelt. You know, so right, okay, so that's anyway. Let's look inside. So Isav Medrash Rabba Parshas Shemini Perek Yud Gimel Parsha Yud Gimel. It says like this: Behemis v'Livyoson Heim Kanigin Shel Tzadikim Lo'asid Lovi. So when Mashiach will come, I'm just going to go straight to the Taich here, straight to the Alter Rebbe's Taich. The way we learn it is that the Eibusher is going to entertain the Tzadikim with a gladiator
feast
show.
Oh, okay.
There's going to be a battle.
Right.
The Sheira Bar and the Livyoson are going to have a battle, and the Tzadikim are going to sit around in the Colosseum,
Right.
and they're going to watch this fun. But the Alter Rebbe teaches, Behemis v'Livyoson are Tzadikim. So there's going to be a battle between tzaddikim la'ased lovi.
Okay.
Right? Not the fish, the behemoths and the leviathan. There, it's a metaphor. Behemoths. So what the medrash continues. Behemoths noisetz Livyoson bekarnov. The Sheir Habar will tear open the Livyoson with his horns. The koire, right? He will pierce and the koire, and he'll tear it open. And the Livyoson is going to be noisetz lebehemis bisnapirov. He's going to pierce through the behema with his, with his fins. And he's going to kill it. Now,
So what's the show if you know what's going to happen?
Right, the word nechira is like the opposite of shchita.
Okay. Shchita's cutting, and this is like
Right, nechira is stab. Right, you understand what I'm saying? In the language, when you say by Yidden shechtmen, by Goyim is men noicher. Understand what I'm saying? It's not a shchita; it's a nechira.
It's a good pre-game prediction.
Right. So,
Taking that?
well, we don't know yet. We don't know all the plays, but so the word is v'noich. Now. Then in the Medrash, the Chachamim ask, what do you mean? Meile that the Sheir Habar stabs the fish. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Sheir Habar stabs the fish. All right, in Apidin, fish don't eat shchita.
Right.
The pasuk says, "Ye'osef lohem imes kol gei hayam ye'osef lohem right? You gather fish, that's the shchita. Asifosam zui shchitosam. But when it comes to behemoths, what do you mean? How could you shech the behemoth with the fins? Steht doch hakoil shechten, ubakoil shechatin, ula olam shechatin. Of course, shchita is very open. Anyone can shecht, and at all times, I feel even when Mashiach comes, but chutz mimagel kotzir, with the exclusion of a blade that's curved.
Why not?
Right? And a blade with teeth. That's the chulu. So then the Gemara and the Medrash answers. So the Chachamim say, how could you use shchita from the Sheira Bar? So I don't remember who Amar Safra, whoever it is. He says the teretz is ad chidush Torah meiti teitze that lost lovey zayin Torah chadasha.
Why don't you just say that it says
There'll be a new hakoil is the person.
Right. So this
The
is
sheichet.
What's wrong?
Yeah,
with
but the instrument.
Yeah.
The knife is not a kosher knife because the fins have
Are like
teeth.
Serrated.
Yeah,
So maybe it has a straight fin.
no, but that wasn't the teretz in the Medrash. That's your
Okay,
teretz.
then
You
I
write it in the
can-
orders this week. You'll write.
Oh.
Okay. Teresh Chadad Mitzvah. So I just want to mention. You say Torah Chadasha Meiti Teitze. Mashiach will come. There'll be new Torah. So first of all, what do you mean? We learned. Torah Azel Leitei Muchlefes, right? Famous. The Rambam. What do you mean? The Torah. Ani Ma'amin that the Torah is never going to change. So what does it mean Torah Chadasha? So, in general, the Rebbe talks about this. Obviously, this is one of the inyanim in the sugyas of inyani Gula Mashiach. And there are two basic approaches to this particular inyan. Right? One is that why can't we change halacha? Because the halachas that were made in the past, we don't have a bezdin that's large enough. Yeah, you could only be mavatal. Remember, this is a halacha. This is not... The Torah says v'zavachta. We to talk about the hilchos shchita. So we have to have if the Sanhedrin gets together and they have and they revote and something is decided in a different way. In other words, once Mashiach comes and the Bezdin Agadol is reestablished, things could be revisited and halacha could be reversed. Right? We could come to a new maskana. Now it's frozen because we don't have that. Godel mimenu b'minyan u'b'chochma, right? We don't have that capacity. So that's one nekuda. The other nekuda is what do you mean? In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, ein shvus b'Hamikdash, right? Not only is there ein shvus b'Hamikdash, in the Beis Hamikdash, the fire was on the Mizbeach on Shabbos. In other words, Shabbos is basically hutra. In the Beis Hamikdash, they could do all malachas. So the Torah Chadasha is that the Livyoson and the Sheira Bar, to them the halacha doesn't apply because just like in the Beis Hamikdash, it's at a higher place, whatever that means. It's not about beyond the law. It's a different, right? It's like it's not so gashmius. Yeah. So that's what he's saying. Not that when law said love you won't need shchita. But that the inyan of the Sheira Bar and the Livyoson is on a higher plane.
It's a one-time event, so it has to have a unique category in halacha.
Right. Well, yeah. It's another inyan. Yeah. So let's continue. Ubehemis elu zo inyan Sheira Bar, like we explained. Okay. So this is the medrash. We'll have an inyan kenigizu the Livyoson and Sheira Bar. What is this battle between the Livyoson and the Sheira Bar? Which I mentioned before, that the Sheira Bar and the Livyoson are different types of tzaddikim. So the way we're learning it is not that the Eibishter is making a show for the tzaddikim, but the battle is between the tzaddikim. There are tzaddikim called Sheira Bar and tzaddikim called Livyoson. There are two types of tzaddikim. Now let's. I know that he says that there are two types of tzaddikim, but let's remember va'amech kulam tzaddikim. Right? We're all tzaddikim. All yidden are tzaddikim. So ha'alev, the first group of tzaddikim are oison shehem b'seiser. Right? The tzaddikim that are v'seis b'seiser. Remember from last year. Right? What does it mean, tzaddikim that are b'seiser? Right? What does it mean, tzaddikim that are b'seiser? Right? What does it mean, tzaddikim that are b'seiser? Right? What does it mean, tzaddikim that are b'seiser? Right? What does it mean, tzaddikim that are b'seiser? What does it mean, tzaddikim that are b'seiser? Yeah. What does it mean? What does it mean tzaddikim that are baseser? Baseser means hidden. It doesn't mean lamed vovniks. It doesn't mean hidden tzaddikim. It means that their avodas Hashem happens on is spiritual avodas Hashem. Their main avodas Hashem is their ruchnius. Right? I want to mention something that he speaks about later in the Maamar. In Kriya Shema, we have two parshas. The first parsha, we have three parshas. The third parsha is Tzitzis, Yitzias Mitzrayim. But in the first two parshas, we have B'chol Levavcha, B'chol Levavcha, B'chol Nafshecha, B'chol Meidecha. So in the first parsha of Krishma, it says B'chol Meidecha. In the second parsha of Krishma, it doesn't. It just says B'chol Levavchem, B'chol Nafshechem. So what's the difference? Yeah, the question is clear. Right? Why in Ve'ahavta it says B'chol Moedecha, and in V'hoyim Shemaya B'chol Moedecha is missing? Right? Why is it missing? No, it never bothered you. You never had the shaila. No.
No, because you're already doing it. First is that you should. And V'hoyim is already once you're already in it.
So which of the two parshas, which one is higher? Which one? You can't come to Vahaya without. In other words, a person who's at the madrega, a person who's at the level. Which level is higher, Vahaya or V'ahavta? What does V'ahavta mean? What does V'ahavta mean? You should love the Eibishter. V'hoyim Shomaya. What's it talking about? Is yira, is obedience. In other words, practically, V'hoyim Shomaya means practice Judaism. Live like a Jew in Maaseh B'Poel. Kabbalas oil mitzvahs. V'ahavta is to have avas Hashem. It's not about your practice. It's about your orientation. Love the Eibishter. It's about Varim Shebalev. It's about what's going on in the heart. In other words, V'hoya im Shemaya is about the tzaddik whose avodah is kiyum mitzvahs. What makes him a tzaddik? What he does. V'ahavta is avodas Hashem. What makes him a tzaddik? The way he feels. He has ava rabbah. He has incredible love for the Eibishter. That's why that's his, right? He has ava rabbah. Ordinary people don't have ava rabbah.
Why is the sweet sauce on that side?
Now, in other words, what they do is an outcome. That's not where their work is. Yeah, you follow. Yeah, you follow. Yeah. But you understand what I'm saying? Their Yiddishkeit is an outcome of their love. Their effort is their love. Once they love Hashem in such an incredible way, then obviously all the action follows.
So that's a tzaddik?
They're both tzaddikim. The way I'm right. So therefore, in the first parsha of Shema, it says B'chol Ma'idecha, because B'chol Ma'idecha is about the spiritual work. It's not about the physical work. Love Hashem with all your might. What is all your might? It's afilu neitel. Yeah, in other words, b'chol nafshecha was already neitel as nafshecha, but b'chol ma'idecha is ma'od, beyond. Ava Rabba, incredible Ava. I'm not talking about now with all your money, right? We're not talking about that touch. V'hoyim shemaya. That's not the avodah. The avodah is doing what you need to do. So b'chol ma'odcha is absent. Because that's not what it's about. It's not about avodah ruchnis. So he says you have two types of tzaddikim. You have tzaddikim that their main avodah is avodah shebeseiser, meaning it's avodah pnimis, it's avodah Hashem. Pirush bekavonas halev leyachid yichudim oyonim or bebchinas aliyas. They're always going from level to strength to strength. In other words, in Gashmius, you can't. Every day you put on film. So what are you going to do? Tomorrow you're going to put on film twice. when you talk about loving the Eibishter, so the love could become more intense. But if I'm learning all day, so you know what I mean? So I'm doing everything I need to do. So what do you want from me now? I'm already. That's it. Nu was willst du noch?
So you're saying, Meister Pearl, they'll only tier 1.
Right. So in the tzaddikim that are in a state of yichudim al yoinim, they're looking to become one with the Eibishter in a spiritual way. To them, it's always. It keeps on going. It's Mechayel al Choyel. They're always b'bchinas aliyas. They're always looking for higher levels. There's Kagein Rashbi. Kishoye b'mayra Yud Gimel Shana. Now be'emes, we don't need, the Rashbi is an extreme example. We don't need this dogma. Because what happens with Rashbi is that the physical is missing. All he has is the Ruchnius. 13 years in the cave, all these mitzvahs he couldn't fulfill. All they had to eat was carob and the water, that stream of water, the spring, the ibri lahu that the Eibusher created for them. So im kain lekiyam achilas matzah b'Pesach, he didn't eat matzah on Pesach, v'kiddush alayayin, v'esrig, v'sukkah chulu. All these mitzvahs, the physical part was missing. So he'll soon say, we can't say that Rashbi was missing these mitzvahs. He fulfilled them in a, right, only on the spiritual. We'll get to that in a minute. Arizal also had that capacity, even though he wasn't in a cave and he could fulfill mitzvahs begashmias, and he did. So here he's opening up, the Tzemach Tzedek opens up a vort, and he's going to talk about it again in a minute. This is a strange breed. And that's why I said earlier that the Livyoson is a hybrid. It's physical and it's not physical. The Eibishter created it. It's physical, but it transcends time. He's holding it for when Mashiach comes. The one Livyoson that he created. It's defying. We learned a Maimer 2 weeks ago that every Davar Gashmi is nifsad. Remember? That the guf, take out the neshama, and 5 minutes later it begins to decompose. Stinken. I mean, we tear a flower off the ground, how many days can it last? Right? In other words, it's only the ruchnius that keeps it. Right? It's that connection that keeps it going. But here you have a physical thing, the Eibusher created it, and it's defying the laws that are required. So he says this is a Livyoson, but it's on dry land. Look what he says here. Look in the Hagoah. So we're talking about fish, and they're multiplying b'kerev ha'aretz. What are they doing in the aretz? They belong in the water. The other fish, she'enam ba'aretz rak b'yam. Zeh inyan ha'malachim chulu. The malachim, they're the fish that are in the sea. That's where they belong. I'm talking about malchus datzilis, and in other words, in the mefarshim on the medrash, they break out this inyan al pi Kabbalah. If you open up a regular medrash rabbah,
So the Yosef on Torah right now? Is this what he's saying?
this darga, the Arizal, the Rashbi, they're like fish, but they're not living like angels.
Even though with one swift motion they could cover miles and miles.
Even though they could fulfill the mitzvah without the matzah, but they ate the matzah. It's only when the Rashbi, when he was in the cave, he had no choice, so he had to.
Isn't that the same concept of before Mount Tyre, where they did the mitzvah, let's say a physical mitzvah, but it didn't.
I'm going to say yes, but I'll say two things about it. Number one, I'm not an authority. I can't tell you. You know what I mean? In other words, do we have a real understanding of how it is? So on one hand, I'll say yes, that it's like, but on the other hand, I'll say no, it's not like, because now after Matan Torah, the Gashmias component is necessary. In other words, there's a new component of Gashmias that Rashbi has to compensate for that previously wasn't there. And so what I'm saying, the Rashbi, the Arizal, now he's not just doing what Yaakov did.
Yaakov didn't have that option.
Oh, now the mitzvahs are new. After Matan Torah, the mitzvahs are new. So it's not to say, I'm going to live in the past. No, you have to, through Ruchnius, you have to impact the physical world.
It's evolved.
But why are you comparing Arizal here? Because of the levels he skipped at the same time? Like the whale in the ocean?
The Alter Rebbe is saying, I want you to know that the Arizal was like that, was in this sense of Nuna Yama Bi'abosha, of being able basically to substitute Avodah Gashmius with Avodah Ruchnis. That had that capacity. In other words, in a certain way, the physical world wasn't an obstacle for him. He wasn't as limited, right? Like all the kvarim in Eretz Yisrael that the Rashbi, revealed, uncovered, however you want to, right? In other words, the Arizal, in other words, what to us is an obstacle, right? The earth is an obstacle. We can't see through the earth. To him, he sees right through it. There is no, what's the inyan of Yam? The inyan of Yam is that, is being connected to Likus, Malachim. Malachim, they feel their source. Okay, if you know what I'm, in the reference, right? So to the Arizal, the dry land is like the Yam. He sees right through it. The earth doesn't conceal anything. Right? So he's like a fish, but he's on dry land. He's going to come back to the Arizal in a minute. Then Vahabeis, then there's the other group of tzaddikim. Heim, Eisan tzaddikim, Shehem begilui. Their tzidkis, their inyan of tzaddik is about the material world. Their avodah is not so much about what's happening inside their hearts. Their avodah is to do what you need to do. They're soldiers. Like that expression, Pala di Imama, Tapara da Plachu, all these expressions that this is where you told a story of, also the Rebbe came out for Kiddush Levana, and the Levana wasn't there, so the Maisa with a handkerchief, or Rabbi Greenglass with a handkerchief, and the Rebbe said that he knows how to do that also. In other words, generally, you say, so every week, why does the Rebbe have to look? You come out, and no, he's living the world in the Seder. Look, there's no choice. It's the last night. It's the last hour. You're forcing my hand, Eibishter. Okay, we're going to have to do, you know what I mean? We have to show that Gashmis is not really an obstacle. We play by the rules, but if the Eibishter pushes us in that direction, as embrera. Now, okay, v'abeis heim oisan tzadikim sheim begilu shaveidosam begashmius. That's their avodah. Bekil ma mitzvahs maisiyas v'samachta bechagecha. By them mitzvahs. This is what life is. Life is about poshet, being busy a whole day doing Torah mitzvahs. Shu gam kein amshoches ha'yiris al yonim. It's all mitzvahs. It's all ruchnius. Moyed Hashem. It's about Yomim Tovim. It's manifesting the Yomim Tovim. What are they happy about? They're not happy about the ribs. They're not happy that they had good pastrami. They're happy it's Yom Tov, but they're celebrating it with physical, with a new suit and meat and wine. That's how they celebrate. It's dafke through physical action. And from the shlomim, the bailam at gegessen. Now we don't have karbonis in simcha lebeyayin because l'kamon getrunken wine. And if we think about it, the Rebbe, to us, the Rebbe heavily emphasized this aspect. Well, why did the Rebbe repeat so many times that achal hamoed you have to drink every day a revi'as yayin? You know what I mean? It's like this emphasis on the ma'aser hu ha'ikr, right, which the Rebbe said 1,000,000 times, and really highlighting and teasing out in every Yom Tov the action part of every Yom Tov. You know what I mean? Like to celebrate that we should do. This is, to be as active because that's what our mitzvahs are about. Let's not get caught up in our heads and in our hearts in a hisbaininus all day. You have to do. Aftan dasidus. I just want to talk about this for a minute from a different perspective. On one hand, he's going to talk about on one hand, the tzaddikim like Rashbi, the Arizal, this idea of serving Hashem inside my emotions. So it's very fulfilling. You understand? Right? It's the aliyahs. It's a spiritual journey. In other words, there's a paradox here. The tzaddikim that are Rashbi is completely bottled to the Eibishter, but he has a lot of satisfaction, a lot of gratification in that kind of avodah, because it's not a simple action. An action could be an action is a little bit robotic. The tzaddikim that are the lower tzaddikim, essentially what they're doing is they're saying, I'm going to be mavatal myself to the mitzvahs of the Eibishter. We spoke about this from many times from different angles. Mitzvahs are rotzin ha'elyon. Rotzin, will, is beyond reason.
Right.
Inherently beyond reason. It's be'etzem beyond reason. Yeah, some mitzvahs come down to a tam, but that's not what it is. A mitzvah is not a tam.
Does Tainug have reason or it's also have reason?
Also not. Tainug is the shayrish of Ratzin, right? It's the inside. It's the other side of the same coin, right? The Hashem's Ratzin. What does Hashem's Ratzin? Essentially, Hashem's Ratzin mean that's what I want. Why? I don't know why. That's why. Because. So these tzaddikim, the simple tzaddikim, they're being mavatal themselves completely to Hashem's will. And this is, in a certain way, the Rebbe's bakosha of Deir Hashvi. Right? The Rebbe's request of Deir Hashvi is, be committed to action. Be committed to doing mitzvahs. Forget about how you feel. Don't be so caught up about the way you feel. You need to do. I know I'm going to go on a tangent for 2 minutes. Yeah. Someone was in touch with me, the last couple of weeks. There's a fellow online, Mr. you're familiar with his name. Some of you, a guy Peterson. Anyway, he has a lot of whatever is nishnageh. So he's a Canadian. He's a Canadian academic, and anyway, machnish dois. So he has a lot of lectures online, hundreds and hundreds of lectures. So one of the things that he says, in one of his videos, he talks about depression. So he says, when a person comes to me that's depressed, I ask them certain basic questions. I say, do you have a job? Do you have friends? He says, if a person doesn't have a job and a person doesn't have friends, you're wasting your time. You understand? What are you going to medicate them? The conditions of their life are you understand? The conditions are 60% of the diagnosis of the social life. Of the cause. A person sits a whole day alone, doing nothing at home, without any...
What if he has a job and no friends? Then it's Thursday.
Good. Are you in a relationship? Right? Are you in a relationship? Right? Those are his three questions. Right? Are you in a relationship? You have friends. You have a job. A person has nothing in life. They have nothing to achieve, nothing to look forward to, nothing to... Right? They don't have any goal. They don't have to do anything. They don't... For whatever reason. So how could a person be motivated? They have nothing, there's no motivation, there's nothing to live for, there's no, right? So think about it in the context of what we're talking about here in the Maamar. Right? The being in a relationship and having friends and having a job, that's the tzaddikim shebegilui.
Same thing as an other in the Shemini is that he has to be involved, he has to have people, he has to be part of the meeting, he has to, or shiva where people have to come into the
right. Yeah, it's incredible.
Same thing, just
in the depression part, how I'm feeling part, that's the tzaddikim shebeseser. Tzaddikim shebeseser, this whole avodah is beseser. You think about it also, by the Rebbe's davening. It's completely, there's nothing being expressed outside. Nothing being, right? It's what should I say it? It's like, it's antithetical. It's, what do you mean? It's hard to even do that. It's hard to stand still. It's hard to stand still with that. In other words, let's say if a person focused the whole davening on just standing still, right? I want to be skashus. You'd go insane. Right? And if a person gets into davening, I don't mean someone that's faking it so they're shaking and whatever. I'm not talking about that. Someone who really, sincerely. Remember I told you I had a teacher that he was a bocher, and he gave us a tip. He said when you sit down to learn in Zal, it's a long time, 3 hours to learn. It's very difficult. He said I want to give you an eitzah how to make it happen. He says, and when you'll go into Zal, you'll realize. He says if a guy comes into Zal, chap the Gemara with the slavas, with excitement, and he's 11 o'clock say the nigla starts. He sits down, shokol, tafan kol, the whole Zal hears him. 10, 15, 20 minutes later, the guy's out. The guy's done. He finished his quota. I would notice by him, he would always sit down to learn. He would be sitting back, relaxed, very relaxed, usually wearing like a little sweater or something. He's taking it easy. 15, 20 minutes later, he's sitting up from his seat. He moved up a little bit and cooked a bissel. It takes 30, 40 minutes. Oh, it's shakeltzich, he's in. And I watched it, it works. It's an incredible thing. You start with a storm.
It's a sprinter marathon.
Don't see this.
It's a marathon.
Yeah, so you got to pace yourself. Yeah, so when a person gets into davening, for an ordinary person, tzaddikim shebegoli, so you're going to shake as an outcome. It's going to express itself in a physical way. What's happening by the Rebbe, by davening? Complete stillness. Why? Because the avodah, it has to be. Because the avodah is only beseser. The Rebbe's personal avodah is the avodah pnimis. It's not, if there's any shockling, then it's not beseser, then it's begoli, it's a different thing. It's another avodah. It's a fascinating thing. So let's take a look. The Iker HaMshachas, by these tzaddikim, Iker HaMshachas bePesach, Aydei Matzah, beShavuos, Aydei Matan Torah, beSukkos, Aydei Sukkah, v'Lulav Minov, uBeladei Zeh, without these things, Efshel HaMshach Klaus, they can't achieve anything. Avod Ashbi, Shahoyim bePchinas Livyoson, now you see, now he says it, he articulates it more. V'nune yama the ozlin biyabeshta. Fish that are on dry land. So whenever they can, they do the physical mitzvah. But when he couldn't, in the cave, he had in the way of ruchnius, that's the way he accessed it. Now he says like this. Okay, so that's number one. He established there are two types of tzaddikim, fine. Now, v'hine be'emes. To be honest, he says, efsher lahagia. You can't touch, right? There's a book in Kehos, To Touch the Divine.
Yeah.
To touch. Efsher lahagia. Onriren beloshen Yiddish or Ashkenaz. Elikusi is baruch hayde aveda agashmos. Says, to be honest, physical work cannot touch Elikus. It's only through Aveda Ruchnis, it's only through Aveda Pnimis. And this could be very misunderstood. Right? What we're talking about here. We're talking about Giluyim of Elikus. We're not talking about Atzmus. So these, in other words, the tzaddikim that are begilui, that are eating meat and are all of this, they can't really touch elikus because they're in a physical world. You're in a physical world. Your world is chocolate cake. Your world is ice cream. What kind of shaykhs do you have in Atzilus? The story with Malch Mechol and Gan Eden with the slippers, we have to realize that Gan Eden is not Atzilus. You know, Simchas Torah in the morning, Malch Mechol is busy. He's collecting the torn soles of the shoes from the Yidden was some getan Simchas Torah. It's a risen the Shich. He's making a crown for the Eibishter from the Tzarisen Ashich. Yeah, Lekutei Diburim. There's a whole. No, the Frierdiker Rebbe and Lekutei Diburim. He has a Sicha, yeah. Usually when we talk about it, we're a little intoxicated. So, also today's shoes last longer. So, Shehayam v'chas aleim.
Depends who's wearing them.
Yeah. Shehayam v'chas aleim. The sea covers, conceals them. Kach hey mibchinas alma diaskasia. Yeah, that tzaddikim is a whole different gather, covered from the world of obscurity. V'yeshnam b'chol derva der shem tzaddikim shebeseser. In every generation, you have such tzaddikim. V'heim, they're the ones that are mechabrim ha'elam islein seiv baruch hu. They connect the Eibishter and the world. Al derech she'omru that David. That's Livyoson is not a fish. Livyoson, these are the tzaddikim that are escorts. They escort the Eibishter. They're partners. That these tzaddikim are. They go along. It's like side by side. They're together with the Eibishter. Right? It's like the chaperone. I mean, I'm looking for a better word, but a partner. You love Eishi Elai, he's going to be my partner. A partner. Pasha, these tzaddikim are partners with the Eibishter. Right? Like someone says, I want to go somewhere, but I don't want to go myself. You're coming with me.
Companion.
Right? Yeah, you love Eishi Elai, kum zusammen. So the tzaddikim, they bring the Eibishter into the world. Yeah. This is these tzaddikim, this is the Rashbi, the Arizal, only them. It's only possible with such people. Now goes a Hagah from the Tzemach Tzedek. I made a Hakdama before, and now he goes to this Gemara. V'hine, the Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, that begimel shoyes reviyos, in the fourth set of 3 hours, which is called Samach Lemincha. Yeah, Samach Lemincha. Right? From the last hours of the day. So that's when the Eibishter plays with the Livyoson. Those are the hours of the day. This of the Gemara, yeah. Now, whose slot is it? Yitzchak. The Yitzchak tikein tfilas hamincha. The Yadua, the Yitzchak who loshen tzchik us tzchik, laughter, us tzchik. K'meishakosov tzchik asa li'elikim. Mishkosov zeh mas shachti b'shalom. V'lachein oz yoshev u'mesachik im Livyoson chulu. That's why. That's the time of mincha. That's when the Eibishter is mitzachik. V'ayim ashakosov pirish mincha in the Maimer v'yikach men abba b'yod mincha. There's one. Gam ki Yitzchak chofar be'eris shu inyan halo asman.
Yeah, why?
V'ayim Parshas told us. Now, so I'm going back to. I asked a question before with a mashal. I don't think you came in yet.
In the middle of the cold.
Yeah, that. So the mashal asks a question: why the Gemara's lashon is mitzachik? Right. Really, it should have been schoik. So now, with the ruchni as the pshat, when we learn it al pi chassidus, we'll have even a better understanding. The Eibishter, he's going to explain here in the Maimer. He explains here that this inyan of tzchik is halo asman. Right? Not that the Eibishter. Right? Now really comes the kasha. Mitzachik means that the Eibishter is being misameach the tzadikim, but that's not what it. But the whole point of mincha is halo asman. The whole inyan of Yitzchak is that we are being misameach the Eibishter. Not that the Eibishter is bestowing on us. We're eliciting. We're giving him joy through our avodah. We're entertaining him. Right? Every once in a while, the kids come and they say, Shabbos afternoon in the summer, they say, Tati, Mommy, please sit down on the couch. We want to make a puppet show for you. Right? We're coming here to entertain you. That's halo asman. So Eba say taka, the kasha is, so why does it say taka mitzachik? The whole Indian is choik. So the teretz is because choik sounds a little bit inappropriate by the Eibishter. It sounds like wildkeit, right? It's frivolity.
That's the reference to Lekutei. When you got up in the morning.
Letzachik.
So Abimelech, when you saw Yitzchak.
No, so there Yitzchak is mitzachik es Rivka, so he's giving Rivka the schoik. Here we say the Eibishter is mitzachik with the Livyoson, but he's taking, he's not giving.
It's the opposite meaning.
Yeah. So he says because it wouldn't be a derech kavod. The Parshas vayim shemoya loy nikra dayin oisin etzoni shamakim kedeboy. That Parshas vayim shemoya is missing something. They're doing mitzvahs, but it's not kedeboy. It's not the way it should be. It's not the way it ought to be. Because it's missing the avodah pnimis. It doesn't say b'chol ma'itcha. K'mei b'Parshas Shema. The hainu, what is the meaning of Eisen Ritzoni Shomakim? The hainu Shelia is Saham Shacha ve'Agili Misevev Kolamin b'Mamalik Kolamin to be Mamshich Ein Sof into the world. That's Eisen Ritzoni Shomakim, and that's only possible through avodah pnimis, through the avodah of the heart. Zeu dafka al yidei b'chol ma'itcha, which is b'lik vulchul. Zeu habchina haniska kan. This is the level of these tzaddikim, of Rashbi. Right. Another aspect is that right when we think about the Rebbe, or we think about whatever, it's their avodas Hashem is non-stop. They're always in a state of connection. For us, we go in and out. I mean, you come to shul, whatever, you go home. We have breaks. You know what I mean? It's a different. So how could we connect? To be connected with Ein Sof, you have to be constantly connected. It's not. There's no bowing out. There's not like Tio. I need a break. So I was able to in the Baal Shem Tov over there. A guy came to ask him a question. So he went to the bathroom and then he came out. He said, you know what I mean? So he said, He told him, Vu de Ganef. So he says, Avdem Rebbe, Avdem Nitzte, that's what you do. You sit and you follow, with Ruach HaKodesh, you follow the Gneve. When they got the Ganef, they brought him and he said, how did you know? He says, 'cause the Baal Shem Tov told us. He came to the Baal Shem Tov, that's what you use Ruach HaKodesh for. So he says, I was in the bathroom. Whatever, so when they came out, before he washed his hands, right, before he washed his hands, but like this, every day is in Dveikus. Every second, it's like an arm wrestle. Yeah? Every second, he's in Dveikus. Zeo, that's B'chol Moedcho. Zeo, Abchina Anisker Kan. Sha'agiyah Laham Shebchinas Apam, you love it that a person should be an escort, to be together with the Eibishter. Zeo, idea of Aveda Ruchnis, Shal Tzadikim, and the Krem Nuna Yama. Ash'enkim, Beloi B'chinas B'chol Moedcho. If you're missing that Aveda Pnimis, so you're tzaddikim, and you have Yiras Hashem b'shleimus. Everything is wonderful, but it's not b'chol moedcha. It's not eisen ritzein shel makom k'deboy. The Eibishter from the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The Eibishter is not. There's no joy. He doesn't have fun. There's no recess. I don't mean recess as the break. I mean, he has no fun anymore. Because Parshas Truma, and our Yechra, V'yovish is dried up. But Mashkos Moshe Zakus Shom, L'rochik Do Yaakov, now the Yidden are Yaakov. V'eid Shleimar Bazeh, another aspect of this inyan of the third hour, Api Mashkos B'kis V'arizah. Sha'yeteiru mitzvahs mamshichim yichud zun. To be mamshich, zo and nukve, fine, that's through Kiyum HaMitzvahs. But Yichud Avo, Amshachas Chodesh Mein Seiv Baruch Hu, Hu Al Yidei Mesiras Nefesh. That requires going beyond Daike. V'zeu inyan Krishma, Limse Nafshe Be'echad. And that's the inyan of those tzaddikim, Mesiras Nefesh. I am Mashkos Mizav Bir HaPasuk V'nigdashti B'seich B'nei Yisrael, Parshas Emer. V'nigdashti B'toich B'nei Yisrael. Where does the Eibishter's Kedusha come? When the avodah of the Yidden is b'pnimiyusam, when the avodah is in their heart, not when it's just kiyum ateiru mitzvahs with our arms and legs. Sha'ara machevorim. That's the betoich.
It's the opposite of Shemini. Mesiras Nefesh is exterior, no?
No. There are different versions of this story. People came and they said, even when you read the stories from Rabbi Yankel Kadaner in the Sipurim Noiroim, that the Rebbe's father, the Rebbe read it in the Sheva Brachas, you know what I'm talking about? There's a minig that Chasanim in the week of Sheva Brachas, they read Sipurim Noiroim. Where does it come from? Because the Rebbe, when he was a Chasan, I think his father told him that during Sheva Brachas, maybe it was from the Friedrich Rebbe, he should read Sipurim Noiroim. So Sipurim Noiroim were stories written by a chassid of the Middle Rebbe, Rabbi Yankel Kadaner. So Rabbi Yankel Kadaner, he was very poetic. His Hebrew is flowery. I don't know. Every story begins with 5 lines of to tell you about how unbelievable. You can't even believe it. No one knows it. Kol Rosley, honestly, since you know what I mean. Since the beginning of creation, there were never and I heard mamish from the person, and the person who told it to me is a Neman, and there's a whole Megillah, and then there's a story, Anyway, so Rabbi Yankel Kadaner, so he writes all. There's this idea. You're asking me to tell you about the Rebbe. About the Rebbe, we have no business talking about the Rebbe. I could tell you a story, something that he did.
I mean, Jen talks about the Rebbe.
You understand what I'm saying? The Rebbe Alein, kein Sheichas nicht. I could talk to you about his Torah. I could tell you about a Geschmack Sicha. Right? This idea. Why do we have to say that? Why do we have to... We tell stories about Abaye V'Rove. You know what I mean? Why do I have to say... The Rebbe Alein, it's the Meises from Avram Mayor, from there, from Yener, whatever. There are a lot of stories like this. It's negeh because this Inyan. Because Tzadikim Shebeseiser, what we know, that's not them, B'chal. Everything that we know has nothing to do with who they really are. It's just,
And the commitment after the Thomas that we realize what they knew and what is, and it keeps on evolving.
Well, we. And what
Yes.
is. Not what they, what we.
Shkoyach. Okay, so that's the Indian. No Hashura. Don't worry, I have games. Yeah. זהו הפירוש מה שכוסף כאן, שהמשוך זו דווקא על ידי אבי דרוכניס שמבחינס לוויוסן, and that's the Indian of Chibur Ayesh La'ayin. That's the Mesiris Nefesh Be'echad. That these tzaddikim, their avodah is into the ayin. It's into the ruchnius. That's how they get connected to the Eibishter. Akapani will continue. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Hatzlacha Rabbah.